When it comes to taking guitar lessons, there's a very common misconception, and it's the idea that you are able to fall behind or catch up. And a lot of the time, this causes people to stop taking lessons altogether after missing a bunch of lessons because they have the idea that they need to catch up. There is actually no such thing as catching up, because there is no place that you are supposed to actually be. There's only right now, and there's what you have covered and what you have not covered. You're not supposed to only practice one thing at a time anyway, okay? If you're working on, say, sweep picking, or trying to sort out your alternate picking, you're not supposed to only work on that technique until you are good at it and then work on something else. Unfortunately, that's another misconception that a lot of people have, is that you're supposed to do that. And it doesn't help much that method books kind of reinforce this misconception that you are supposed to master one technique before you can graduate on to beginning to work on another one. That is the slowest, most unproductive way you can possibly approach practicing an instrument, or any skill for that matter. There are, like in any kind of discipline, there are a whole bunch of different techniques that you are going to need to be able to do equally well. Okay, so you can't just sit back and expect to get good at one thing and hold off on developing everything else until you've mastered that. So when you stop taking lessons for a period of time because you feel like you've fallen behind, you are actually making sure that you don't move forward. You are even slowing it down even more. All you have is right now. And if what you have in terms of your lessons is in a recorded form, just start working on that now too. Okay, there is no such thing as catching up. You're going to have to work on this stuff now, and you're not going to master it in a couple of weeks or a month's time by taking off of lessons. All you're doing is making it more and more comfortable to put your guitar development on the back burner, because you are taking away the one thing that is holding you accountable to yourself, which is showing up to the lessons. You're actually making it easier to procrastinate, and that is all you're achieving by taking off of lessons with the intention of catching up, because catching up doesn't exist. There's nothing there to catch up on. It's just stuff you haven't done yet. You only have right now, though. The past is gone. You have to just start doing it. And there's no catching up. That isn't what catching up is. Catching up is doing more. You're only going to progress at your fastest pace. Okay, so unless your lessons are just crawling along at a slow pace, there is nothing to catch up on. In fact, for the same reason, there is no such thing as going ahead or falling behind either. You are learning at your own pace. You can only ever learn at your own pace. You can slack off and completely neglect the process, in which case you will move backwards in progress. You will lose progress, but you are not going to catch up. Basically, losing progress, you know when you get rusty? That's what that is. That's when you've lost progress. You're no longer as good at the things that you used to be better at. That is not what I'm referring to when I say there's no catching up. That is not what I mean. Material, things you've never done before, are going to remain unfamiliar until you get familiar with them. You're only going to be able to do that at the fastest pace you can. So you can't cram for guitar playing. You really can't cram for anything, by the way. That doesn't work. People in college BS themselves into thinking that works. It doesn't work. You can't learn faster than you can learn. You are learning at your fastest pace. You can be efficient about things, but that gets back to the real point, okay? You don't fall behind and catch up. There's no like standard speed for learning. There's your speed, and everybody learns differently. So when you take off of lessons and take away the accountability, you're only really slowing yourself down. Really, that's all you're achieving right there. If you have to miss a lesson, hopefully whoever you're taking lessons from is actually recording the lessons or providing you with replacement lessons so that you can refer back to the material over and over again should you need to, which means that magical 1 hour or half hour session that you would have had in person or over Skype really isn't that important. It's having the guidance from the person. you're not going to fall behind on that. You have a copy of it. You can refer back to it whenever you want. There's no reason to just take off of lessons just because you haven't referred to that material yet. You still haven't referred to those materials. It's still just as new to you as it would have been if you did it at that time. And it's still something that's going to need to be a mere part of your practice schedule. That's the most important thing about this, is you're not supposed to be just practicing one thing for a half hour or an hour. Don't squander your entire practice routine on one skill. You're only going to get so much better today at one thing, but you'll get a lot better, a lot faster at a lot of things if you structure your practice schedule to fit in a number of things. So let's take 1 hour, for example. If you can spare 1 hour to practice your guitar, don't waste a whole hour on one skill. You're not going to get that much better in 1 hour today than you would get in maybe 10 minutes today. You're only going to get so good right now. But continually returning to the guitar and doing that thing for 10 minutes every day, and then 5 other things for 10 minutes out of that hour. Dedicating 10 minutes out of an hour to one thing and breaking that hour up and structuring it in a way that allows you to cover a lot more area is going to get you a lot better, a lot faster. So getting back to the point then, you're only losing, like, if you haven't taken your lesson, if you haven't referred back to the lesson you missed, the replacement lesson, the audio from your lesson, if you haven't really worked on it, you only have right now, that only is 1/6 of your hour that you haven't dealt with. Don't punish yourself further and move backwards even faster by taking away the accountability. Keep yourself accountable to yourself. That is actually the biggest benefit to taking lessons, is having to show up and see your guitar teacher again. That is it. The fact that you, like, oh crap, I got another thing coming up in a week. That's why doing it regularly is very, very important. It's not that you need to learn new stuff constantly. In fact, most of the time you need to be learning the same things. It's not really about learning at all. You need to be doing it. You need to be held accountable to keep doing it. And also, what you are learning most valuably, hopefully, is how to continually advance without doing exactly the same things over and over again. Because if you do the same thing the same way all the time, you're only going to get good at doing it that way. So you're really not getting that much benefit if you only practice the same thing the same way all the time. So being able to be made self-sufficient, being able to learn how to create your own variations and stay productive and really get to the heart of every possible angle of how to practice the specific things you're trying to get better at. That is really what you're learning. The actual acquiring of knowledge is really about how to be self-sufficient. If your lessons are worth their salt, that is. They're not all lessons are created equal. Many people do have their own very valuable, unique take on how to approach teaching the instrument, but not everybody's even good at it, and not every single way to teach the guitar is even effective. I mentioned method books earlier. That is a very, very ineffective approach to teaching it, and it's really just meant to be stamped out of plastic, proverbially speaking, and distributed to the masses, and for a very low price. It's mostly a way to make a book make sense, not a way to actually learn an instrument, which is why I generally discourage learning exclusively from books. There's some good stuff to be gotten from books, but don't follow a method book as how to learn, because that is just mass-produced. It's not targeted to you. It's targeted for you to buy it based on your interests, but it's not based on your goals. It can't be. Unless the only person's goals that it's possibly ever going to be based on is that author's own students, at best, if not that particular author themselves. So the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is, if you're taking lessons and you miss a few, don't quit lessons because you haven't gotten back to them. Stay in lessons. That's all the more reason why you need to stay in your lessons. Make sure you show up as much as you possibly can, even if you know you have to miss some. Reschedule, get a replacement lesson, refer to it when you can. You only ever have right now, okay? So everything you haven't done yet, you still haven't done. So taking off of lessons is not going to fix that. And really, you're just throwing out the baby with the bathwater when you do quit lessons, or take a break, as it's called. Quitting lessons always starts with taking a break. It always sounds like you're taking a break, and it's just a forever break. And that is only going to put the nails in the coffin for your guitar playing. If you really want to get good, show up as much as you can, make the most use of the time that you do have. You only ever have right now anyway, so, you know, be a bit zen about it, really. There's nothing that you're going to, like, catch up on. You only still have right now to start doing that thing you haven't been doing enough. So, anything that you have quote-unquote fallen behind on, you just haven't dealt with it yet, and you just start doing it now. And still, that's only at most going to be maybe part of your practice routine for maybe not even every day, you know, depending on what the skills are. You need to start doing whatever it is regularly, among other things that you also do regularly. Nothing singularly should be the entirety of your practice schedule, because you're trying to be a complete guitarist, not an awesome alternate picker. No one is a professional alternate picker, you know, or professional chord strummer. Whatever the thing is you're learning this week or last week or whatever the week or 3 weeks even that you missed from your lessons, none of that is the entirety of your guitar playing. So keep it in perspective. Just because you missed a couple lessons doesn't mean that you're not going to just suddenly catch up on that and be a great guitarist and ready to learn. You're there to learn. The fact that you're lacking in something is why you need to be at your lessons. And if you miss them, fine, okay. You know, life happens. It's okay to miss things, you know, and try to make it work though, because the accountability is the absolute main ingredient of training. Make sure that you get that benefit, because that is the thing that makes sure it's not just about learning things and you're on your own. Although a lot of guitar teachers do just pretty much do it that way. Here you go, here's the material. If you succeed, it's thanks to me, and if you fail, it's your fault. That's kind of the dynamic that a lot of people leave you with, but that's not how it should work. That's definitely not how it works with my students. I'm going to try to find a way. If I find it's not working, I'm going to find a way for you to work. You know, it needs to work for you. And if you continually keep running into the same problems, we need to look at how you manage your time, how you manage your choices in that time, how you can make this work for you. Something just needs to change. It's not like black and white. It doesn't like it works or it doesn't. Something else needs to be modified in your schedule and how you make choices throughout the time that you're given. The same 24 hours we all get every day, by the way. You just need to make it work for you so that it can fit in. So if you keep running into that problem and you keep missing your lessons, change your schedule with your teacher, you know. Find another way, change how frequently you meet, change what time or day you meet. You know, change the pace at which your practice routine is sorted out for you with your teacher. You know, rather than on a weekly basis, make it so that you have it structured so that you can modify what you're doing over the course of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even a month. Meet once a month. That can work. It's just the teacher has to be dealing with your goals and thinking about your strengths and weaknesses and the areas of development that you need the most when you meet, so that you can have all your ducks in a row. You need to go in with a game plan with your lesson just as much as you need to go in with a game plan for your individual, you know, your daily practice routine. What you're going to work on, you need to know that before you start your hour, instead of wandering aimlessly from one technique to the next. Otherwise, you're not going to have any kind of focus. So being strategic about everything you do will make the difference in whether or not you get any results or not. So don't quit your lessons just because you missed a few. Keep going. You're paying for accountability and guidance. Keep yourself accountable, because you're not accountable to your teacher. You're accountable to yourself. You signed up for lessons because you wanted something. Get that something as soon as possible, instead of as long from now as possible, which is what happens when you stop taking lessons because you missed something. That's all for this time. I'm Jason at Shred Mentor Rock Guitar Academy. Until next time, rock on.